Most people walked right past her, pretending not to see. But when she gave away the only dollar she had left, she never imagined that one simple act would echo back into her life in the most unexpected way. Rain tapped softly on the concrete as Evelyn adjusted the shawl around her shoulders, hoping it would shield her from the evening chill. She sat at her usual corner near the train station entrance, an old cardboard sign resting on her lap. The words had faded from rain, sun, and time, but everyone knew what it said by now. Anything helps. God bless she didn't beg loudly. She didn't speak unless spoken to. She just sat there, day after day, the wrinkles on her face telling a story that nobody ever asked to hear. Evelyn wasn't always homeless. Once, she had a home with a garden full of lilies and a tiny mailbox her husband built by hand. She had 2 children, Sunday roast dinners, and warm slippers by the fireplace. But life has a way of folding in on itself when you least expect it. A car accident took her husband. Medical bills took the house. Her son moved abroad, unreachable. Her daughter, well, they hadn't spoken in years, not since the argument that shattered everything. Now she lived in a shelter at night and wandered during the day, her life fitting inside a rolling suitcase with one squeaky wheel and a small tin of coins she had collected over the week. That evening, she had exactly $1 to her name. She hadn't eaten since morning. $1 wouldn't buy much, but it could buy a small coffee. Something warm, something real. She stood slowly, bones creaking like old floorboards, and shuffled into the nearest convenience store. The line was long. People talking into phones, people looking everywhere but at her. She stepped up to the counter and pointed at a small coffee cup behind the glass. "Just one, please." The cashier was young, distracted, didn't say much as he rang it up. She reached into her pocket. The $1 was there, crumpled, soft around the edges, the last of her pride. But before she could hand it over, a small voice behind her piped up. "Excuse me, miss?" Evelyn turned. A boy, maybe 9 or 10, stood behind her. Freckles, hoodie, nervous eyes. I don't mean to be rude," he said, "but I lost my bus card and my mom's gonna freak if I don't get home. Could I maybe borrow $1? Just one?" The cashier looked at the boy skeptically. "You sure you're not messing around, kid?" "I swear," the boy said, eyes pleading. Evelyn looked at her coffee, then at the boy, then at her $1. She didn't hesitate. She placed the bill gently in the boy's hand and gave him a tired smile. "Go on now. Get home safe." The cashier frowned. "What about your drink?" "I changed my mind," she said softly. She stepped out into the cold and walked back toward the train station. Empty-handed. But somehow, she didn't feel empty. She didn't know that someone had seen the entire thing. Someone who had just walked in behind them. Someone who would make sure she never had to choose between coffee and compassion again. The man stood frozen at the entrance of the store, one hand still gripping the umbrella he hadn't even bothered to shake dry. He'd just wanted to pop in for a quick snack before heading to the hotel. But something about the way the older woman gave away that $1, quietly, without hesitation, stopped him cold. He saw it all. The boy's panic, the woman's weariness, the crumpled $1. She had almost nothing, but she gave like she had everything. He stepped out behind her, watching her shuffle into the distance, her small frame disappearing beneath the heavy clouds and dim streetlights. He didn't even know her name. Not yet. But something inside him had shifted. That night, Evelyn returned to the shelter, the cheap industrial lights flickering in the hallway as she signed her name on the clipboard. She didn't expect a bed to be available. It was always first come, first served. But tonight, by some stroke of luck, they had one empty cot. She took it without a word, curled up beneath a frayed wool blanket, and closed her eyes. She dreamed of lilies again, and warm, buttered bread, and a knock on the door she hadn't heard in years. The next morning, Evelyn woke early. The shelter was already buzzing with movement. Others packing up their bags, brushing their teeth at cracked sinks, preparing to face the city again. She rolled up her blanket, tightened the scarf around her thinning hair, and wheeled her suitcase out the door. Back to her corner. Back to the same sidewalk where the world passed her by. She didn't expect anything to be different, so when she reached her spot and found someone standing in it, her heart nearly stopped. A man in a dark overcoat, well-groomed, maybe in his 40s, holding a paper bag and a coffee tray. He turned and smiled. "Morning," he said. She looked at him, confused. "I brought breakfast," he added, holding the bag toward her. Evelyn looked around, unsure. "I'm sorry. Do I know you?" "No," he said. "But I know you. I saw what you did yesterday, for that boy." She blinked. "I just did what anyone would do." He shook his head. "That's not true. Most people would have looked away." He extended the coffee. "Please. Just sit with me?" She hesitated, then nodded slowly, sitting on the edge of the bench while he handed her a sandwich and a steaming cup of coffee. They sat in silence for a while. The city was waking up, cars honking, buses groaning, commuters rushing. But none of that reached them. Finally, he said, "My name's Jacob." She smiled gently. "Evelyn, nice to meet you." "You too." He looked at her carefully. "Do you mind if I ask what happened?" She chuckled, shaking her head. "That's a long story." "I've got time," he said softly. And for the first time in years, she told it. Everything. The accident, the medical bills, losing her husband, losing her home, the silence from her children, the nights in the cold, the kindnesses that were few and far between. She didn't cry. She'd done enough of that already. When she finished, Jacob was quiet for a long time. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a small black notebook. "I run a property management company," he said, "and we recently bought a small apartment building a few blocks from here. It's not much, but there's a unit available, fully furnished." She looked at him, unsure what he was saying. He tore a page from the notebook. "This is the address," he said, handing her the paper. "Go there this afternoon. Ask for Melissa. She'll be expecting you." Evelyn stared down at it. I can't afford—" "You don't have to," she blinked. "You mean, for free?" He smiled. "Let's just call it paid forward." Her hands trembled. "But I gave $1. "And it was the most valuable one I've ever seen," Jacob said. She didn't know what to say. She just wept. Right there on the bench, holding a coffee she hadn't bought, and an address that might lead her home. That afternoon, Evelyn followed the directions. She walked 3 blocks to a quiet street lined with tall trees and flower beds. The apartment was on the 2nd floor. Clean. Bright. A small window overlooking a garden. When she opened the door, there was a note on the kitchen table. "Evelyn, you gave when you had nothing. That's not weakness, that's strength. This is yours, as long as you need it. Jacob." There was also a basket on the counter. Bread, soup, a small bouquet of lilies. She dropped to her knees and whispered, "Thank you," to no one in particular. Because sometimes the world really is listening. Over the following weeks, Evelyn's life shifted gently, like a curtain slowly opening to let in morning light. There were no fireworks, no headlines, no viral videos. Just small, quiet moments that whispered, "You're safe now." Her apartment became her sanctuary. Each morning she woke to the sound of birds outside her window instead of buses rattling by. The warmth from the radiator hummed softly under her feet, and the once foreign scent of fresh linens now smelled like peace. She spent her first night there in silence, afraid even to unpack her suitcase, worried it might all vanish if she let herself get too comfortable. But it didn't vanish. Every day, she returned to the apartment, and it was still there. The flowers on the windowsill still bloomed. The welcome mat still said home. And there was always something thoughtful left behind by Melissa, the building manager Jacob had mentioned. Sometimes it was fresh fruit, sometimes a small book. Once, it was a hand-knitted scarf with a note. "I used to be where you are. You're not alone." Evelyn began to believe it. For the first time in years, she stopped counting pennies and started counting blessings. One afternoon, she wandered into the small library down the street. It had been years since she'd held a book, just for pleasure. Her fingers trembled slightly as she ran them along the spines. She picked up a worn copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, her husband's favorite. As she sat in the corner chair, reading slowly, she felt something stirring, something she thought she'd lost entirely. Joy. The librarian, a kind-eyed woman in her 30s, came by and offered her tea. Evelyn smiled. "This place, it feels like magic." "Libraries usually are," the woman said, "especially for those who know how to listen." Before she left, the librarian pressed a flyer into her hand. A local charity was looking for volunteers to help with reading programs for seniors and children. "You'd be perfect for it," she said. Evelyn hesitated. "I don't know. I'm not anyone important." The librarian looked her dead in the eye. "You gave your last dollar to a child, didn't you?" Evelyn blinked. "How did you—" "Word travels. You may not think it's much, but everyone's talking about it. A lot of people say you reminded them what it means to be human." That night, Evelyn signed up for the program. Volunteering changed something in her. At first, it was only 2 days a week, reading to a group of children while they colored or listening to elderly folks share stories of their youth. But before long, Evelyn became the heart of the center. Everyone knew her by name. Her laughter returned, raspy and warm. Her posture straightened, and the scar across her heart, one that poverty, loneliness, and grief had etched deep, began to fade. Jacob checked in now and then, not often, not out of distance, but respect. He never expected a thank you. He had made peace with the fact that he'd never fix the world. But if he could change one life, maybe that was enough. Still, every now and then, he found small surprises. A loaf of banana bread at his office door, a handwritten quote taped to his windshield. Once, a newspaper clipping tucked into his briefcase with a note in Evelyn's delicate handwriting. "You're the kind of person the world forgets to thank. So this is me remembering." He never told her, but he kept them all, in a drawer beside his bed, for the days when the world made him question his impact. One late spring morning, the mayor's office reached out to the shelter Evelyn had once slept in. They were hosting a citywide event honoring unsung heroes, those who had done something extraordinary without seeking attention or applause. The shelter's director smiled as she filled in the nomination form. She gave her last dollar to a stranger, not because she had it to spare, but because she believed someone else needed it more. And that simple moment changed everything, for both of them. When the ceremony day arrived, Evelyn stood on a small stage, accepting the recognition with tears streaming down her cheeks. She wore a blue dress donated by a local boutique and the scarf Melissa had knitted months before. "I don't feel like a hero," she said into the microphone. "I just wanted that little boy to make it home safe. But sometimes, doing the right thing, even when it's small, makes a ripple so big you can't see where it ends." The crowd stood in applause. Jacob watched from the back, hands in his pockets, smiling quietly. He didn't need to be on stage. He'd already seen the real reward, the woman sitting in a library again, teaching children how to read, making soup for her neighbors, writing letters of encouragement to women at the shelter. She had gone from invisible to irreplaceable. Evelyn's story was picked up by a local newspaper, then a national one. Soon, letters poured in from strangers who had been touched by her story. One from a teacher in Oregon. "You reminded me why I chose this profession." One from a girl in Ohio. "I was going to give up until I read about you." And one from her daughter. A letter that simply read, "Mom, I'm sorry. I saw your story. I miss you. Can we talk?" Evelyn wept. And then, for the first time in 12 years, she picked up the phone and dialed home. If this story reminded you of the power of even the smallest kindness, don't let it stop here. Be someone's Evelyn. Be someone's Jacob. Give your time, your ear, your smile, even if you feel like you have nothing left. Because what you give with love comes back in ways you'll never see coming. Share this story to remind others. $1, one moment, one heart can change everything.